think like they're on the right track. It's really great to see.
I think Arteta's got a massive future at Arsenal.
He wants to play entertaining football, he wants to keep the ball on the ground, he wants to entertain the crowd, and now we're talking about him occupying the last Champions League place.
So Arsenal against Everton next to discuss here on the Headline Makers, where I'm joined by Darren Lewis and Sam Dean. And I spoke to Granit Xhaka after that game and asked what a difficult job Mikel Arteta had on his hands when he came to the club.
Of course, not easy because he's 10 weeks here, but we have a lot of improvement. And how I say, we work very well and very hard in the trainings. We are very focused. And yeah, after 10 weeks looks good, but we have a lot to improve as well.
Get in touch with us, use the hashtag The Headline Makers. Arsenal fans, even if you're not an Arsenal fan, what a job that Mikel Arteta has done, the transformation since he took over. And also, if you want to talk about Granit Xhaka as well, he had a brilliant game, didn't he, against Everton, seamlessly back into that Arsenal team and having a big impact. What do you make of his resurrection at Arsenal? Darren Lewis, firstly, it was an awful match back in December, wasn't it? We remember that game where Carlo Ancelotti and Mikel Arteta both in the stands. Well, first one, let's put you right on the spot. Who has done the better job? Who's had the biggest impact out of the two managers?
Arteta.
Yeah?
Yeah, Arsenal, a bigger club, more pressure, and the bigger chaos for me.
Yeah.
I don't think anything was really expected of Carlo Ancelotti at Everton because they've got lower profile players, without being disrespectful to them. But Arsenal are a huge club. A monster in this country, and I think, and in Europe. And Arteta had a lot of pressure on him as a supposed rookie. None of us, let's not kid ourselves, even the people watching at home, nobody really knew what his ideas on football were. Lots of people were saying, why have you gone for this guy on the basis that he's been Pep Guardiola's assistant rather than somebody who's worked with some of the big players and big clubs throughout.
Are you saying you now know what those ideas are already?
Well, quite clearly, yeah. Because we've seen he's got, the basis is clean sheets, 3 in the last 3, a really strong work ethic, discipline. We've seen that Guendouzi, Sam broke that story. Guendouzi left out of the squad a couple of games ago because he'd defied Arteta's authority, and Arteta was very clear about reinforcing that authority. And obviously cutting edge, because Lacazette is now scoring goals again. They're winning games on the road. They hadn't been doing that under Unai Emery, and they'd completely fallen apart during the last 2 months of his reign. Under Arteta, they are a force again. They are winning games. They're keeping clean sheets. They've lost only 1 game since he took over in November. And they look like Arsenal again. I would not rule them out for a top 4 place because they haven't just got the quality now. They've also got the discipline, the work ethic and the platform to build on defensively.
There was a lot of talk in the first, 6 or 7 weeks after he joined about, for people who hadn't watched the games per se, saying, well, the results aren't really changed. They keep drawing. They've drawn all these games, 4 in a row in the league. What's he really changed? They just, I think someone tried up a stat saying their points per match were actually lower than under Unai Emery. People saying, oh, what's he changed? But anyone who watched any of those games, whether that's journalists covering it or fans in the stadium, people on TV, you could see it was a different team. It was transformed. I mean, under Emery, there was no midfield. People just running through them at will. The shape was gone. The structure wasn't there. The players didn't look fit. They weren't happy. Within literally half an hour of his first game away to Bournemouth on Boxing Day, Arsenal were playing better football than they had for months. And that, I thought, I was taken aback by how quickly he'd instilled that in them. And yes, there have been things to iron out and things to tweak and change, but the structural differences there in the team and the underlying performances have been enormous. And obviously, Carlo's done very well at Everton too and done similar things, but the change in terms of the way they play and the way they set up has been enormous under Arteta, and I think that speaks volumes of his quality as a coach.
Yeah, Nick Ames' tweet on the left of the screen there sums it up, doesn't it? And we should talk about the hard-working mentality, the resilience as well, because there are different types of tests that they've had. For example, the Newcastle game. We were both there for the Newcastle game, Sam, and you could see that was a case of just trying to break down, at the time, resilient Newcastle defence, and it happened in the second half when Newcastle eventually capitulated. And this one, having to come from behind and having gone behind after 49 seconds. And it was, again, let's be honest, that it probably should have been a draw. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, we'll talk about Everton in more detail later, with a couple of sitters missed.
But see, the significance of that game is that there was a lot of pressure on Arsenal going into it because of the optimism that had been generated by the previous 2 games, the win over Newcastle and the win away to Olympiacos. The significance of the Olympiacos win was that it was a second away win in 3 matches. Now, before that, they'd won, once away from home.
It's not a regular occurrence, that's for sure.
It was so poor. So having done that, and we'd written all good stuff about them, and there was a very, very positive feeling around the club, and they'd gone into Sunday's game as favourites, and in the past they've not coped well under the pressure of being favourites. So having fallen behind, you could suggest that maybe an Emery team might well have capitulated in those circumstances, but the character they showed on Sunday, that's another string to their bow. And it gives us a chance, of course, to talk about Saka, because Saka is a player. I think he's going to become one of Arsenal's next big stars. He's 18 years of age, he's versatile, and the key to him playing at left back is that beforehand there were players who had been asked to play in that position. He doesn't see himself as a left back, but he wasn't prepared to make excuses, Arteta says, for why things could go wrong. He was prepared to embrace the role and to make a success of it. And he's shown how defensively aware he is. He's able to get forward. He gives a dynamism to their forward play. I saw him nutmeg the player against Newcastle as he set up the second goal for Nicola Pepe. There is so much energy about his play that I can see why Arsenal fans are excited, not just about him, but about the team as well.
It was astonishing. Now, Valentino Lazaro made him look silly, didn't he, against Newcastle? This is from Victor Stephen using the hashtag The Headline Makers. Hi, guys. Sam Dean, this question for you specifically. Do you think that Arteta, the underdog status, could work in Arsenal's favour for a top 5 finish?
Underdog to the extent that no one's quite expecting them to do it. I suppose so. But the more they keep going, I mean, I think every manager now, every team playing against them will think, okay, this is a proper team with a proper setup now. That's that underdog status may apply to the general public, but managers will be fully aware what Arteta's doing there and the threat they have with Aubameyang up front and Pepe finding some form, Ozil finding some form. Any team who plays against them is going to know this is a serious contest. But just on the point of Saka, what Arteta's done brilliantly there is find a system which basically means that Granit Xhaka fills in at left back when Arsenal have the ball. So Saka's told, go be a winger. When we have the ball, go be a winger, create, beat your man, get crosses in, make things happen. Granit will sit there and look after it. When they've got the ball, but get your shape again.
Which is why we're so keen to keep him and not let him go to Hertha Berlin, which was on the verge of happening, wasn't it?
Exactly. Well, now they're keen to keep Saka too, because Saka's only got 18 months left on his deal. End of next season, he can go for a free. And that's going to be a source of major concern, because as it stands, those contract talks aren't progressing hugely well as far as I'm aware. So that's one to keep an eye on for sure.
Well, following Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's man of the match performance, Mikel Arteta said that the club are doing everything they can to keep hold of their skipper.
Incredible, the amount of work that he's doing and how willing he is to do all the defensive stuff that before I had my questions, shows the commitment that he's shown with his teammates and with the club. So I'm really pleased with him.
What were those questions?
That I wasn't sure if he wanted to do it or if he could do it physically, but he showed that he can do it physically. So then it's about you want to do it or you don't.
Now he's answered those questions, how important is it that you hang on to him?
Well, he's our most important player. Stats-wise, there's no question about the impact that he has in this team. So as much as I can and the club can, we will try to convince him to stay with us.
Got a tweet here from Emi Elekwa, who's watching in Lagos, Nigeria. Emi, thank you very much for watching. He says, Aubameyang not consistent with his goal-scoring ability. He can't be relied upon. And he has the attitude of laxity in front of the goalpost. Has he been hit with the same stick as you in the first part of this show?
I think he's been hit by the same stick as Deontay Wilder at the weekend, because I think I cannot agree with that at all. Away from home, his goal record away from home, no other player comes close to Alexander Lacazette. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Lacazette scored the other day for Olympiacos.
I love how you're talking down the barrel of the camera like a boxer calling out. Are you calling Emi out? Are we getting this fight?
Calling you out, Emi. Get back in touch and say that you were wrong, because I think as far as Aubameyang is concerned, in all seriousness, 17 goals in the Premier League so far this season. Away from home, his stats are so good. No other player is in double figures away from home. That's why they had that bad run when he was shown the red card after the foul on Max Meyer at Crystal Palace, and they struggled after that. They tried to appeal the red card on that basis, because no other player is as consistent as Aubameyang is away from home for Arsenal. They wouldn't even be in with a shout for top 4 had it not been for his goals on the road.
49 goals in the Premier League in 74 games. Emi, we're waiting for your reply, sunshine. Right, in terms of Aubameyang actually in his future at Arsenal, in the summer he's got 1 year left on his contract. He's 30 years old. He obviously wants to be playing Champions League football. He's at the peak of his career, and the vulture that is Barcelona is flying over the Emirates, isn't it, Sam?
Yeah, well, the Vulture had a sniff. The Vulture sniff? The Vulture, the Vulture had a look in January.
Sniff before they bite.
A sniff
Do
before they bite.
vultures have noses?
I'm
not quite sure.
Beaks. Yeah.
The Vulture was aware in January that Aubameyang's situation in Barcelona was certainly exploring that possibility, and obviously Arsenal couldn't get rid of him now. But it's a tough one for Arsenal because I don't think there's any chance he extends that contract without Champions League football. I mean, that's pretty much blatant as it gets in terms of contract deals. There's going to be a big demand for him, but at 30, turning 31 in the summer, is he going to command a huge transfer fee? So then if you're Arsenal, you're weighing up saying, what's more valuable for us? One more year of him playing for our team, scoring our goals, and then we sell him in the summer, as in then he goes for free the previous summer, or sell him now for...
What do you think?
I think they might keep him, even if they don't, even if it means he leaves on a free, because I think there's no way they can replace his goals unless they get Champions League football. If they get Champions League football, they might as well keep him on because he might sign then. It's a tricky
And also
situation
Barcelona have got the great Martin Braithwaite now as well. So.
well, of course, yeah. Barcelona's appeal coming in soon. They want to buy him next week probably. But
I mean, you've watched a lot of Arsenal, Sam,
Yeah.
and obviously, I'm sure if you ask Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang where he'd like to play, it wouldn't be out wide on that left in a lot of the games where he has played. Will he be remembered as a Premier League great, even if he is to leave in the summer coming?
can you be a Premier League great without winning the title, or at least pushing for a title? Probably
Darren's
not.
nodding his head.
No.
Shaky.
I mean, this guy is
shaky.
undoubtedly one of the most clinical centre forwards that we've seen in the last 10 years Premier League. He's just a killer. He's just ruthless, and he's also a bit of a throwback in the sense that so many strikers these days drop in, get involved with the build-up play, get assists. He's not. He's the sharp end at the end of the knife. He is the killer. But so far he's not finished top four since joining the Premier League. So you can't say he's a great in that sense. But I actually think the left wing position suits him a lot better.
I'm going to credit the producers on this one. Someone's shouting Steven Gerrard in my ear on this one.
Oh,
never won the Premier League, but
hold on.
Whoa.
Gerrard had.
Do you want to tell them?
Gerrard had more
Tell
than
the
a decade of
producer to go and sit with Emmy.
Go and sit with Emmy.
Tell him what Steven Gerrard's won.
Steven Gerrard's won everything apart from the Premier League,
Yeah.
and he almost dragged the team to the Premier League. I mean, you can't compare Gerrard with Aubameyang. That's not even worth going down that. Worth going down that road.
You told them, that's right. They've left.
But if you look at Aubameyang, this is quite a controversial view, which I've been sort of harbouring for a few weeks and not quite written it yet because I'm afraid of the abuse I'll get. But he's not a good centre forward in the sense of he can't hold the ball up very well. You watch him against a great example would be. Hear me out, Dan. Let me explain myself.
Right.
He's a brilliant finisher, a great player, phenomenal. Obviously, he's phenomenal. Look at his record, and he's key to Arsenal. If you look at him, a great example, Watford away, when Arsenal conceded like 31 shots all game. Lacazette was out of that game with an injury, and they had Aubameyang playing up front on his own, and the ball does not stick to him. You see it for years. Remember Drogba when Chelsea go 1-0 up?
Got to interrupt you because guess what? Emi Elekwa has been back in.
All right, here we go.
Are you ready? Good man, Emi. He says Aubameyang needs to have the attitudes of Gabriel Jesus and Diego Costa. When they lose the ball, you will see the disappointment on their faces. But Aubameyang doesn't have such attitude, as if he jokes with the ball.
I think that's demonstrably untrue. This weekend...
Are you going to call him out down your...
This weekend, what stood out for me the most, beyond the 2 goals Aubameyang scored, was the tackling back. Were you there? Both of us were there the weekend, and he was charging back on the left wing, and he's tackling and he's fighting, and that's what Arteta said there. He said, when I arrived, I had 2 questions. Could he do it physically, as in, could he get up and down like a winger? Yes. And does he want to do it? Well, so far, yes, he does. And under Emery, he didn't quite do that, but he wasn't always asked to do it the same way. But he's absolutely got the willing to do that, and he does that better than. I mean, this weekend I've very rarely seen a striker commit such a defensive performance.
Look, listen. My view is that a striker's job is to score goals. You can talk about whether you trap backs with this, that, and the other. If you score goals, you are doing your job as a striker. I agree that a striker in the modern game needs to be able to put the defensive shift in, and the reason for Arsenal's upturn in defensive form is that more of the players in the team are chipping in. Socrates was telling us that after the Olympiacos game on Thursday night, and Aubameyang is providing that defensive assistance as well. But I think primarily his job is to score, and he's been doing that job superbly well. You know what though? I'll throw a curveball in for you. If I'm Liverpool, I'm having a look at him. I talked talked before about top teams have 4 top strikers. If you've got a Timo Werner and a cut price Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, before you tell me he's 30 and maybe he's over the hill, you look at Cristiano Ronaldo scoring goals for fun at the age of 35 for Juventus. Top strikers don't lose that eye for goal, and Aubameyang has that in abundance. He is a top striker, a killer, as you said. I think if I'm Liverpool and I'm looking to reinforce my top line, and they are very smart in the market. I remember they bought Shaqiri for £13 million because they took advantage of the release clause he had, and Minamino £7.25 million when nobody was looking at him. They're very, very shrewd in the market. I think he could be one for them.
It's important.
Go on, Sam. Go on.
I should say it's important to note just how important Aubameyang is behind the scenes too. He's a real, I know he's the captain now, just sort of by default after the Xhaka situation, but he is a real leader behind the scenes, and a lot of the young players say that when they first arrived, he's the first one there, arm around the shoulder.
But he's got to be in the Champions League. He's a top striker. Top players, top performers in any industry want to be operating at the top of it. Why are you here? You're a top performer.
That's a very good point.
Emmy asked the same question.
I didn't mean that.
You know what, I'm going.
No, because you're operating at the top of your game. You know, that's where top
He's trying
performers
to dig
want
his
to
way
be.
out that way.
And I think that's
he's already called out someone. I feel like a boxing referee. We're going to move on because we're going to focus on the losing team with Carlo Ancelotti.